Hi, my name is Maeci Curtis, and as you may remember from my elevator speech, I enjoy playing cello. I have been playing cello for about 11 years, and I take lessons now in college. Cello is the third largest string instrument in a string orchestra setting, and the smallest is a violin, the next smallest is a viola, and the largest string instrument in a setting is a bass. The bigger the instruments get, the deeper the sounds get. I would like to take you through the parts of my instrument, of my cello. I would also like to take you through the tuning and how the parts work for tuning, and then I would like to show you how everything works together to produce an effective and cohesive sound. So first I will start with the parts, and I'm starting with the body. The body is the biggest piece of the cello. Everything is connected to the body. So here we have the scroll of the cello. It is called the scroll because of the way it looks like a scroll up here. You see it looks like a scroll and like you could possibly open it. These black pieces are the pegs. So the scroll holds the pegs, and the pegs hold the top of the strings. So underneath of the strings is the fingerboard, and the strings goes to the bridge down here. The bridge is just there to help hold the strings up and help the sound produce well. And the strings are then connected down to the lower part of the cello, which is connected to the fine tuners. The tuners help tune the instrument at a smaller scale. The pegs, it makes a big change when you move them. So the tuners are so you don't always have to move the pegs, so you can just, tighten the string up a little bit or loosen it up a little bit to the way you need it for the tuning. Down here at the bottom of the instrument is called the end pen. It is basically a metal stick used to adjust the height. So as cellists, we want to make sure that when we are sitting, the scroll is about even with our heads, and the bottom of the scroll is aligned with our shoulders. So we need to make sure we can adjust the instrument so that we can have it to the right height where we need it. Next, I would like to talk to you about the bow. The bow is basically a piece of wood attached to horsehairs. Horsehairs are the part that go on the strings in order to create and produce a sound. So the bow has a piece in which you can loosen it and tighten it. Follows the lefty-loosey, righty-tighty rule. As it loosens, you want to make sure that it's not too loose, because if it is too loose, you will have a problem with the wood hitting the string. And that way it is hard to get a good sound out of it, and you can kind of just like hear and feel the wood hitting the string, which isn't good. You can also have it too tight, which is just dangerous for the bow. It can possibly break and snap in half, but you can still get a good sound out of it. Having it too tight means not having much of an arch in the middle of it, and that could possibly, break the hairs, break the bow itself, because it's too tight. A perfect balance would be to have a little bit of an arch in the middle, but not too much so that the strings aren't hitting the wood. This way you can produce a good sound out of it. Next, I would like to speak to you about the tuners and the pegs. So the pegs are these large pieces up top, as I mentioned before. Basically, you push them back, so you want to stand next to it and line it up with your body. Pull them back to tighten the strings if they are out of tune, and you pull them towards you to loosen the strings. Each string has a specific pitch it's supposed to be at. So this is the A string, this is a D string, this is a G string, and this is the C string. So you want to make sure that they stay at those pitches, and in order to do that, you'll have to move the pegs. Down here are fine tuners. Fine tuners allow you to tune the instrument when it's just a little bit out of tune, so you don't have to move the pegs. Moving the pegs makes a large difference between the notes when you're moving them, and the fine tuners, you can just move them just a little bit as you need it. Now that I have gone over the parts of the instrument, I would like to explain the tuning and how the tuning works. So like I was saying, you get the fine tuners, you got your pegs. With the fine tuners, so you guys may know the lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. It is a little different with the fine tuners. So if I'm facing this way, my cello is also facing this way, this side's my left and this side is my right. So lefty will actually, turning it to the left, will actually tighten the string. And if I turn it to the right, it will actually loosen the string. So it's a little opposite from what you're normally used to hearing, but it keeps the instrument in tune and the strings in tune. The pegs, I more just use the backwards and forwards thing. It's not really lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. I mean, I guess it it can if you're being sideways, but most of the time when we're using the pegs, we are facing it. So it's either backwards or forwards in order to tune it. The next part of the tuning is the strings. So this is A, D, G, and C. Instrumentalists, string players, use tuners to help get our instruments in tune. So we want to make sure that the sound is right, that it's not out of tune, because if it's out of tune, then whatever you're playing is out of tune and it just sounds bad. So as strings are plucked or as they are bowed with the bow, there are vibrations, and those vibrations cause sound to produce. And just the structure of the cello allows the sound to go outwards and be projected. And the closer, so as we're using a bow, the closer that we play to the fingerboard, which is this black piece again, the softer it can sound. You can make it quieter when you need to play your music. And the closer you play to the bridge with the bow, the louder you can make the sound. So being an instrumentalist is difficult in a sense because we need to be able to develop our ear. By that I mean we need to understand what notes sound like and what they sound like when they are out of tune. So it takes a lot of practice and a lot of work to make sure that we can hear those things, especially as we're playing. We need to be able to adjust the way we are playing to fix it. So with string instruments, we just put our fingers down somewhere on the string and it's supposed to be in tune. There kind of is a general geography of where your fingers are supposed to be. This is a first position, for example. It's supposed to have 1 on B, 3 on C sharp, and 4 on G or D. Sorry. And there are different positions where you can put your fingers on different notes and be able to play those notes that way. It's very, very important that you have ear development with this, because if you do not, which I struggle with honestly, they're just out of tune and it doesn't sound right, doesn't sound cohesive. It sounds off when it's out of tune. So it just takes a lot. And also there is vibrato, as you may see me do later. It is when we shake our hands, kind of just to make a warmer sound out of the cello. It also helps knock out some of that bad intonation. So if you're vibratoing, you might be able to cover up some bad notes, or some things that sound a little off. But that's the general for the tuning and intonation and things. Intonation is basically where your fingers are and, where they go in order to, make the sound, how well you are at consistently playing notes in tune. So now that I have gone over the parts and the tuning, I would like to show you how the parts and the tuning all come together as one to create a cohesive, sound and how everything works together. So I will play for you. Find a chair. I will be playing Minuet by Boccherini. And through this, you may watch my hands, my fingers, my positions, and just notice how my fingerings can, land on places and have to be in tune, and how the bow works to produce sound. One of the really cool things about a cello is that there's going to be a note on some of the strings where you can play it with, I can play a D 4 fingers here. I can play it an octave lower, which means it's just basically a whole, 8 steps lower on the following string. So this is my D, my open D string, and this is my D on my A string, and I can use them to tune. It's part of the developed ear. You got to make sure that the note's in tune when you start. So I can listen to them and move my hand in order to tune it. You hear that clashing kind of sound? It's definitely out of tune. When it doesn't sound right, it's a little clashing. So then I move my fingers in order to get them in tune. Here they sound almost in unison. You can barely tell the tune apart. So here I will start playing Minuet by Boccherini. I've seen how everything has worked together. You can see how the body helps produce a beautiful sound, and how the pegs and the tuners, having them in the right place, has everything in tune. You may have seen how my fingers move to make the proper notes. You might have heard a couple notes out of tune as well. That's part of the developing a good ear. And, a lot of technique helps, all of that work together and work well. You should have also seen how I, made piano and the mezzo forte stand out by the pressure I put on and by the placement of where I've played with my bow. So I really hope that this has been helpful, that you now can, learn to play an instrument. Honestly, there's lessons here on campus. If you're interested in learning to play any instrument, even if it's not a string instrument, you can, learn. There's plenty of professors. You don't have to be a minor. I mean, I'm a music minor, but you don't have to be in order to, take lessons. So if it's something you want to look into, go ahead and just ask Dr. Weber if you're here in the music department, and you can pursue whatever you would like to pursue. Again, my name is Maeci Curtis, and I thank you for listening to me.